there's another situation, and then maybe we can shift our sights onto China now, because when I said, speaking of being out of options, there is this powder keg that the United States is brewing in or developing in Taiwan. And there has been an announcement of another pretty large package, actually, a military aid package of $345 million. Now, this is going to be part of the Biden administration's first major package, which is going to draw on its own, on the U.S.'s own stockpiles. And it's going to use the same authority that the Biden administration has been using with Ukraine. It's going to send all of these weapons that you know a lot more than me about, man-pads, firearms, missiles, and a whole bunch of other things that's supposed to add on to $19 billion worth of military sales of things like F-16s and weapon systems that have been approved, but similar to Ukraine, a lot of them actually haven't made their way to Taiwan because, surprise, surprise, there's backlogs. A lot of these weapons have to be produced again, or have to be produced and then sent, or so there's a lot of backlogs that the military industrial complex is facing. But nonetheless, this is happening, and it's coming at a moment where it also feels like the U.S., in this particular context with China, is kind of out of options. There's an election that's going to come up in Taiwan that we constantly reference, and because of the way that the local elections went of November of last year. And but nonetheless, despite all these visits from U.S. officials, and we've spoken to them about them together on this program, whether it's Blinken's visit from several months back, or even Janet Yellen's visit just less than a month ago, we're talking about some pretty highly contradictory stuff coming out of the U.S. side. What's your reaction to this latest military arms or military aid package deal to Taiwan? And yeah, what do you think this means for the future of U.S.-China relations? Because it feels like no matter how much the U.S. tries to pose as a peaceful mediator or attempting to restore ties, it always seems that there's another policy move that brings them right back down again.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, the $300 and some odd million package is disconcerting because it takes the U.S. down a path that appears to be consistent with the same policy path that they were on when China called foul and started creating problems. But let's dig a little bit deeper into this. Even when Tony Blinken met with China, he said that while we recognize that that Taiwan will never be independent, and that we reiterate our one China policy, he did say that it would be a one China policy consistent with the past practice of providing Taiwan with the ability to defend itself. When you take a look at this drawdown, this $390 million drawdown, and dig into those weapons, there's nothing there. I mean, there's nothing there to make the Chinese lose sleep over. And frankly, in this day and age, $395 million, well, if I ever won a lotto that much, that's a lot of money to me. I can do a lot with 395. I don't even know how I begin to spend that much money. But in military defense worlds, it's not that much money at all. It isn't. So I think the Chinese, they're like, you were just there. I have the highest respect for the Chinese and their maturity as a nation and their depth of knowledge. I have yet to encounter, not physically, but I mean to read of a Chinese expert who's not an expert. I mean, they're genuine experts. They study the topic. They study what they're supposed to do. So I imagine that a defense expert who takes politics out of it will look at it and say the same thing. If I were briefing Xi Jinping, I'd say, boss, this is the United States going through the motions. This is about domestic politics in America. It's about Joe Biden having to shore up his base leading into a presidential election. He can't be seen as being weak on China. So he's look what he's doing. It's drawdown because it has to be seen. It has to be flashy. It's got to be like the guy walking into the casino, fanning out $100 bills. You know, got to look good, and that's what this is. This is a drawdown, looking good, quick turn. But when you break it down, it's nothing. Literally nothing. China should lose any sleep over, especially given the fact that, you know, what the election's in January, right? The Taiwanese election. All right, half this stuff isn't going to be in Taiwan come January, anyways. So I think this is about Biden anticipating what's going to happen in January, which I think most people believe the Kuomintang is going to take over the presidency. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I haven't read Taiwanese politics right. You know, I'm trying to read your poker face right now, but because you know China a whole lot better than I do. But, you know, I think the Kuomintang's positioned to be competitive for the presidency. Some people believe that they're going to win. You know, but the Biden administration can't afford to be caught out on this one. They have their own election in November. Let's say the Kuomintang wins, and the Biden administration didn't do this. There will be Republicans who are going to say, you abandon your ally. You know, they lost because Taiwanese lost faith in America. You showed that you weren't going to be there for Taiwan. You know, you sent Blinken, who crawled on his knees. You sent Yellen, who was, you know, mealy-mouthed. And the Taiwanese felt abandoned. And so, of course, the incumbent didn't have any support. This allows Biden to say, no, I supported. I gave them money. It was a drawdown. It was the quickest way to get the stuff to them. You know, I'm living up to my obligation under the, under the American One China policy, that to always be helping Taiwan legitimate self-defense. So that's how I look at it. I'm not panicking on this. And I know the Chinese have to issue prerequisite, political statements condemning this as, as an escalation, as, provocative. But at the end of the day, the Chinese know what it takes to take Taiwan, and they know what impact this is going to have on Taiwan's ability to defend against that. And the answer is not at all. They're man pads. I mean, they already have man pads. It's not like you're reinventing something. You're not giving a capability. Most of those are going to go into storage. And we know what happens to storage facilities when a war starts. They go boom. They go goodbye. They're not ever going to be released from storage in the hands of people that can use them. That's the reality. Almost everything the United States is giving goes into a warehouse. And it's going to stay in the warehouse. Some will come out and be used for training purposes. But when the war starts, if it starts, it'll go boom and go goodbye, and it won't matter anymore. It'll be gone. But I actually think that the war won't start, because I feel pretty good about the fact that the United States doesn't want a war with Taiwan, with China. I think that, remember, this isn't just a whim that we're operating on. The United States was on a specific trajectory. And the reason why they stopped that trajectory is that the Pentagon told the Biden White House, we can't win a war against China at all. Zero chance. And if you go down the path that leads to a confrontation, we're going to be out. We're going to be called out, because you're going to start something where we already know what the outcome will be. We're going to lose, and probably lose badly. So let's not get in that situation. Let's calm things down. And so that's the trajectory they're going on. And I think also the Biden administration is worried about what's going to happen in January. I think they're concerned that the Kuomintang may win. And if the Kuomintang wins, the United States has to be in a minimum a policy neutral position. They can't be so overcommitted to the incumbent party that they'll be alienated from day one with the Kuomintang. They have to be in a position where they can adapt to changes. They're not abandoning the incumbent, but they're not too far separated from the Kuomintang. So I think that I think the Chinese have played this brilliantly. I think the Chinese have, first of all, let's take a look at what they've done. The South China Sea, it's not even a question anymore. I mean, it used to be the United States talking about rollback. No one's talking about rollback anymore. Those are Chinese islands, and they're never going away. Taiwan Strait, China made it clear if you continue to, that freedom of navigation doesn't exist in the Taiwan Strait because it's China. China owns both coastlines. That means it ain't international waters in the middle. And if you continue to sail your ships in, we're going to continue to harass you, try and ram you. And I just think the United States was looking at the trajectory of things saying, man, what happens if the Chinese ship hits our ship and it sinks? What do we do now? We can't walk away from that one, so we're going to have to sink a Chinese ship. Now we're going to have a fight going on. And what happens if you light that, you light that fuse, and next thing you know, the whole thing is blown up and we're in a war that we know we can't win? We got to get out of this situation. So that's what I think is going on right now. I think that this $390 million is purely a political statement made by the Biden administration. Now, as a U.S. taxpayer, I get a little concerned with $395 million political statements, but what the hell? We just gave $150 billion to Ukraine, so who cares?
Yeah, it feels like a drop in the bucket comparatively. In terms of the Taiwan election, it's going to be very interesting to see. From what I'm hearing from folks, it's a bit of a messy situation. You have a third-party candidate kind of emerging. You have people really tired of the DPP, but you also have, which is a Tsai Ing-wen's party, for those who don't know. But there's also, there's also complicated political situation on the island. The vaunted democracy, right? The electoral democracy suffers its own problems as well when it comes to when certain parties have power, what they can do with it. We have to remember that the KMT was able to institute martial law for like decades once it took power. So there are, I think, problems with the system that may lead to maybe a bit of unpredictability. But regardless, I think your point is still correct, because the conditions are that most people are kind of fed up with being sort of politically recruited and corralled around the whole China threat. And that will, regardless of the outcome of the election, I think it's going to definitely play out in terms of what the U.S. can viably do when it comes to using Taiwan as this proxy. Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.